Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. It's fantastic to have you with us.
Great to be diving in again.
So here on the deep dive, our mission, well, it's pretty straightforward. We grab a whole stack of information articles, research, notes, and we basically pull out the most important bits, the real nuggets of insight for you.
Think of it as your fast track to getting up to speed.
Exactly. Packed with, hopefully, some surprising facts and maybe just enough humor to keep things interesting.
We try.
Today, we're heading into some really thought-provoking territory. It's one that kind of asks us to rethink what people knew and maybe how they knew it, way back, long before modern science. We're diving into this really remarkable paper called Unsolved Mysteries by Stan Mackey. It was first presented as part of the Reclamation Project back in June 2020.
Right.
And Mackey's work, it really pushes us to question how certain insights could possibly have existed millennia ago. You know, ages before we had any of the scientific tools or methods we rely on today.
It's a fascinating premise.
Yeah. The big question Stan Mackey puts forward is essentially this. How could these ancient writings hold insights that line up so closely with modern scientific discoveries? Especially when, actually proving those things was literally impossible back then.
Right. They lacked the technology completely.
So we're going to dig into these pretty astonishing parallels and think about what they might suggest about, well, where knowledge itself comes from.
And that's exactly the angle we're taking. It's really important to say up front, our goal here isn't about proving or disproving any particular faith or belief system.
Okay.
Instead, we're following Stan Mackey's approach. We're here to look closely at these, frankly, remarkable correlations, he points out, and just consider, what are the implications for how knowledge might have been gained in ancient times? We really just want to shine a light on these kind of unexpected alignments between, let's say, ancient texts and modern science, and invite you, the listener, to think critically about it, just like Mackey's work encourages.
Yeah, it's a really interesting crossroads, isn't it? The old and the new.
Definitely.
Okay, let's dive into the first big one. This first incredible claim from Stan Mackey's Unsolved Mysteries. Just try to imagine explaining, to someone in ancient Mesopotamia or maybe classical Greece, how our planet Earth is actually held in space. What did people generally think back then?
Well, yeah, the prevailing views, the cosmologies, were pretty different from ours today. Most cultures had these, really elaborate myths.
Right.
You'd hear stories about the Earth sitting on the back of a huge turtle, or maybe an elephant.
I've heard that one.
Or, held up by giant pillars, or even carried by titans or something. The common idea was always some kind of physical support, something solid holding it up.
Makes sense based on what they can see.
Exactly. The idea is something just floating with no visible support that just wasn't part of how they experienced the world.
But then, Stan Mackey points this out, we find this extraordinary statement in ancient scripture. Specifically, it's in the book of Job, chapter 26, verse 7.
Okay.
And it just says, he hangs the earth on nothing. Just like that. On nothing. What a bold, almost, counterintuitive thing to say back then, especially compared to all those turtles and pillars.
It really is audacious, isn't it? And the amazing part is modern astrophysics confirms exactly that. The Earth is suspended in space.
Yeah.
It's held in orbit by gravity, this invisible force. There's truly nothing physically holding it up. No pillars, no turtles, no giants, nothing.
Just gravity.
Just gravity. And this understanding, it's fundamental to how we see the universe now.
Right.
But to think that this statement was written down in antiquity long before Newton figured out the laws of gravity.
Millennia before.
Yeah, millennia. And certainly way before anyone could even dream of space travel or satellites. It just raises this profound question. How could they have had such an accurate understanding of how planets are suspended? It totally went against the common wisdom of the time.
It really stands out.
It does. It's a major, unsolved mystery if you're looking for purely empirical, observable explanations from that era.
That really does make you stop and think. So while others were talking turtles, this ancient text gives a picture that fits perfectly with modern astronomy and physics. Wow. Okay, that's a powerful start.
It is.
Now, let's shift gears a bit. Let's go from the huge scale of the cosmos down to something much closer, but just as hidden back then. The idea of springs, actual springs, existing deep down in the ocean.
Okay, deep sea springs.
Yeah, Stan Mackey's work brings this one up too. Think about it. Ancient people, they barely sailed on the surface, right?
Yep.
Let alone exploring the crushing darkness miles down.
Absolutely not. The pressure, the dark. Impossible.
Submarines, deep-sea cameras, that stuff was pure fantasy until, like, relatively recently. So how could they possibly imagine something like a spring, a source of water down there?
Seems unlikely.
Yet, Mackey highlights several places in Scripture that seem to suggest exactly that, like Genesis chapter 8, verse 2, Proverbs 8, verse 28, and Job 38, verse 16. If you read them together, they seem to point towards, well, deep-sea water sources.
And this is where that contrast between ancient limits and modern discovery gets really, really sharp.
How so?
Well, the whole concept of springs in the ocean, it was basically just theoretical, maybe even fantastical, right up until the 20th century.
Okay.
It was only then that oceanographers actually discovered what we now call hydrothermal vents.
The vents.
And these aren't just holes in the seabed. They are literal geological features where superheated water, full of minerals, bursts upwards from beneath the ocean floor.
Wow. So like underwater geysers.
In a way, yes. They are essentially true springs in the deep sea. And they even support these unique ecosystems that live without any sunlight. And discovering these vents, it was a huge deal for marine biology and geology, a massive breakthrough, but completely unknown until we developed the technology, the submersibles and things, to actually go down there and see them.
Right. Relatively recently.
Exactly. So for these ancient texts to mention phenomena like this, deep sea springs, ages before humans could possibly explore those depths, it's just astonishingly prescient.
Yeah, prescient is the word.
It really makes you wonder how they could record such specific details about parts of our planet that were totally hidden from them. It wasn't just a vague guess. It sounds like a description of something real but inaccessible.
Totally inaccessible back then.
No.
Okay, so hydrothermal vents. Incredible. Now, from those deep springs, let's go even deeper maybe, to something even more massive, but again, completely hidden. Stan Mackey points to Jonah's story.
Jonah and the live fish?
Well, yes, but specifically the part where Jonah, in his prayer from the depths, describes being at the roots of the mountains beneath the sea. That's in Jonah chapter 2, verses 5 and 6.
The roots of the mountains. Okay.
Now, if you just read that casually, you might think, okay, that's powerful poetry, right? A metaphor for being in a really, really deep, dark, desperate place. How else would you describe that feeling?
This seems like a reasonable interpretation, yeah. Especially without today's knowledge, but if you connect that phrase to what we now know about the actual shape of the ocean floor, Jonah's words, even if they sound fantastical, they actually line up with a staggering scientific reality.
Which is?
Modern oceanography, especially with sonar mapping and all that tech developed over the last century or so, has confirmed that there are massive underwater mountain ranges down there.
Like big ones?
Huge. We're talking about colossal structures. Think of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It's this enormous underwater mountain range that literally snakes for thousands of miles across the Atlantic floor. It's where new ocean crust is formed.
I've seen maps of that. It's immense.
It is. And these aren't just little hills. They are vast mountain chains, totally hidden beneath miles of water.
Wow.
Discovering these underwater ranges, it was another huge scientific revelation. It totally changed how we understood plate tectonics and Earth's geology.
Yeah.
Yet this ancient text, through Jonah's account, seems to mention this very real geographical feature, the base, the roots of these underwater mountains. It suggests a knowledge of Earth's hidden topography that was just impossible in Jonah's time.
So it wasn't just poetry.
It seems to go way beyond just poetic imagery. It points to a literal physical reality that was utterly unknown and frankly undiscoverable by human means back then. It really challenges that idea that ancient knowledge was only about what you could see with your own eyes.
It really does, almost like having a geological map centuries early.
Okay.
Okay, so we've looked at Earth and space, deep ocean springs, underwater mountains. Now let's get really personal and shift to the human body itself.
Okay.
Stan Mackey points out this really fundamental biblical claim. The humans were formed from the dust of the ground, and eventually we return to dust. See that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, and again in Genesis 3:19.
Right, dust to dust. A very famous phrase.
Yeah. And at first glance, maybe it sounds, simple, maybe even a bit primitive, like an obvious observation about decomposition, maybe.
You could see it that way initially.
But then when you look at it through a scientific lens, it suddenly seems, incredibly profound. What does modern chemistry tell us about that idea?
Well, this is where it gets really fascinating because that apparently simple statement, it holds up perfectly to modern chemistry and biochemistry.
Really?
The
Oh,
scientific confirmation is right there in the elemental composition of the human body. Our bodies are made up primarily of elements like oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, iron, a whole list of them.
okay, basic biology.
Right. But here's the crucial part. Every single one of those essential elements is also found abundantly right here in the Earth's crust, in the soil, essentially in the dust of the ground.
Huh. So literally.
Literally, we are actually made of the same fundamental building blocks as the planet we live on. So that ancient text is perfectly describing our literal biochemical connection to the Earth.
That's amazing.
It is. And understanding that that required sophisticated modern chemistry, knowing about atoms, doing elemental analysis, stuff that was completely impossible back then.
Right.
To have such a precise understanding of our physical origin and our ultimate physical fate articulated so clearly, so long ago, it just shows this remarkable insight that came millennia before we could actually prove it scientifically. It's a really profound statement about our connection to the planet, maybe even the cosmos.
That connection, yeah, it's way more than just poetry. Okay, now for the last piece of this puzzle from Stan Mackey's work. And honestly, this one just floors me with its practical, medical precision.
Oh, which one is this?
Mackey highlights a very, very specific instruction in the Bible. Genesis chapter 17, verse 12. It says that circumcision should be done on the 8th day of a boy's life.
The 8th day. Okay, very specific.
Exactly. Why the 8th day? I mean, why not the 1st day or the 3rd or the 10th? What could possibly be special about the 8th day from a medical standpoint?
Well, this one is truly a standout example. It's ancient wisdom that contains this incredibly precise medical insight that, again, predates our modern biochemical understanding by thousands of years.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the science?
The scientific reason for this timing only really came to light with biochemical research in the 20th century. We now know that vitamin K, which is absolutely vital for blood clotting.
Right, important stuff.
Very important. And prothrombin, which is a key protein made in the liver, also essential for blood clotting. Both of these things reach their peak levels in a newborn baby's body around the 8th day of life.
Wow. Really? On day 8 specifically?
Around day 8, yes. Before that 8th day, the baby's levels of these crucial clotting factors aren't quite optimal, so the risk of bleeding would be higher.
Yeah.
And after the 8th day, while they're still there, that peak concentration has passed. So that specific timing, the 8th day, actually turns out to be the safest window for a procedure like circumcision because it significantly minimizes the risk of serious bleeding.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah. It's an incredibly specific medical detail. It's not something you could figure out through just watching or trial and error back then. I mean, how would you even measure clotting factors?
You couldn't.
Exactly. It really challenges our assumptions about ancient medical knowledge being just based on rough experience. Here we have this precise, potentially life-saving timing that modern science only confirmed thousands of years later.
That's just stunning. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Stan Mackey's Unsolved Mysteries, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Reflecting on these parallels we've looked at.
It really is.
From the Earth just hanging there on nothing
Uh-huh.
to hidden springs deep in the ocean,
Yeah.
there's massive underwater mountains, the fact that we're literally made of Earth elements.
Right.
And even this incredibly precise medical timing for a procedure. Ancient scripture, just as Stan Mackey highlights, seems packed with these statements that just uncannily line up with modern science, often thousands of years before we could confirm them.
Yeah, it really challenges the standard narrative about ancient knowledge, doesn't it?
It does.
And this really brings us back to Stan Mackey's main point, or conclusion, perhaps. For people who approach this from a perspective of faith, these correlations aren't just seen as, lucky guesses or coincidences.
Right.
They're often viewed as powerful confirmations of divine inspiration, evidence of God's knowledge woven into the text itself. But for skeptics, or those looking for purely natural explanations, they remain these really compelling, intriguing mysteries. They raise serious questions about how such advanced insights could possibly have been acquired back then without any scientific tools.
Yeah, it leaves you wondering.
So this deep dive, really, like Stan Mackey's paper itself, it's kind of an invitation, isn't it, for all of us to just keep exploring that fascinating intersection where faith and science sometimes seem to meet. Or at least echo each other.
Echoes, I like that.
Yeah. It shows that the more we learn about our world through science sometimes, the more we find these intriguing resonances with ancient knowledge in our modern understanding.
So we'll leave you, our listeners, with maybe one final provocative thought to chew on.
Okay.
If these insights really were truly beyond the scientific reach of the people writing them down back then, what does that suggest about the origins of knowledge itself? Where did it come from?
A big question to ponder.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this exploration has sparked your curiosity and given you plenty to think about.
Hope so, too.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and yeah, most importantly, keep being curious. Till next time.